the wokeness bubble that seems to have burst, maybe, or starting to burst, still has remnants in our culture that are showing up. So even though it's like, people might not be on that trend anymore, I want you to see that the trend still has momentum in your kids' schools, for instance, because this first story, it's kind of horrific. And again, I could not like, people think it's tough covering the topics on the show. It's like, yeah, but Law and Crime Network's just a slice of this. I wouldn't want to have to do that full time, because you'd have to see stories like this. Naked teacher caught in classroom with drugs, sex toys, say the cops. Now, thankfully, it was during Thanksgiving break, and he's having a little Thanksgiving parade for himself in the classroom, apparently. But still, like, people like this are encouraged to be around your children 40 hours a week in state-sponsored indoctrination camps. And if you don't see it like that, maybe you've been without your free will and autonomy for too long. So the next story after that, this comes from Timcast, sad but true. Liberal women sterilize themselves over Trump win, which is a very permanent decision. And then following up on that, we have Steven Crowder, and the title of it is Her Dad Must Be Proud. And then we'll go to the other PJW, Paul Joseph Watson report. They've gone nuts. So there's a theme here. And then we'll move on from this theme, because we have other news to cover this evening. But let's go to Law and Crime Network, and let's learn about the dildos in the classroom that aren't being used for instruction.
Teacher was found naked in an elementary school on Thanksgiving, surrounded by all sorts of disturbing items: sex toys, marijuana. But guess what? It doesn't end there. When police moved in to arrest this guy, the suspect apparently tried to flee and even punched an officer. What is going on? I'm going to talk with Chad Ayers, former sheriff's deputy and founder of Proactive Response Group, to get to the bottom of this absolutely bizarre situation. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey, so before we jump into this story, I have something I gotta tell you about. I host and executive produce a show called Prime Crime with Jesse Weber and Crime on Spotify right now. Just click the link below and in the description. In a shocking and disturbing series of events, a Florida teacher was arrested after reportedly being discovered naked inside of an elementary school classroom, surrounded just by a bizarre assortment of items: sex toys, marijuana, and women's underwear. Yep, I am not making this up. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this was all on Thanksgiving. Yeah, I forgot to mention that point. So this bizarre scenario played out Thursday night at Windmill Point Elementary School in Port St. Lucie, Florida. And it ended with this teacher allegedly punching a deputy before being taken into custody. Now, before we even get into any more details about this, I want to bring on a special guest in studio, Chad Ayers, former sheriff's deputy, founder of Proactive Response Group. Chad, good to see you. Thanks so much for coming on.
Always to see you, Jesse.
We saved the best stories for you, apparently. General reaction to this story?
At first, I thought, is this a spinoff, and it's now called Naked and Not Afraid, or whatever? Can you imagine this deputy, Thanksgiving night, burglary in progress? We respond to these all the time. Most of the time at businesses, schools, they're false alarms. This guy goes in with his flashlight, just checking, and all of a sudden, guess who walks out? Naked teacher, sex toys, marijuana, and then gets punched in the face.
Yeah, I want to get into this about how it all unfolded. It's just a shocking situation. I mean, police, they responded, as Chad said, to this burglary call at the school. The alarm goes off. And this is a school, by the way, that serves children from kindergarten through 5th grade. And at approximately 9:30 p.m., deputies arrived to investigate this reported break-in. And little do they know, they're about to stumble upon, again, this just bizarre situation. Because as officers enter the building, they reportedly find Joe Urias, a 34-year-old teacher, I will mention not from that school, naked inside of a classroom. And according to a police report obtained by Law and Crime, as soon as the suspect saw the deputies, he tried to make a break for it. The report says when the male saw the officer, he quickly clothed himself and began to run toward the back of the building before making his way outdoors. So Urias managed to make it outside, but officers were right on his tail because, according to the report, once outside, the officer attempted to apprehend the male. However, the male began to physically fight the officer. So not only did he attempt to fight off law enforcement, but he also even punched the officer square in the face. The male proceeded to strike the officer with a closed fist in the face. This resulted in injury to the officer's mouth, indicated by bleeding. Now, fortunately, they were able to quickly regain control of the situation. Urias was not able to escape. The officer then gained control of the male against one of the buildings while waiting for backup to arrive. Several other officers went on scene and aided placing the male in handcuffs. So, Chad, let's talk about this. Chasing a suspect and apprehending a suspect like this, very dangerous situation. What did you take away from it?
Well, especially at nighttime. And obviously the report doesn't tell me if surveillance showed that he was naked, or did the law enforcement officer see him at a distance being naked and put his clothes on and take off running. But obviously he's by himself at night, takes off running. Officer safety is our main goal, paramount in this type of situation. So maintaining good eye contact and visual of the suspect and gaining control of him. But then, like we saw, great job on the officer's part, gets punched in the face. So many times we've seen where officers get punched in the face. I remember sitting on hiring boards. The first question I would ask new deputies when they would get hired, or before going through the hiring process, is, have you ever been in a fight, a fist fight? And it was amazing to me how many, I'm the oldest of four boys. We grew up fighting, and how many people had never been punched in the face. And so the first time, you get punched in the face, trying to apprehend a combative subject, I want to know that, hey, I know what that feels like. I can handle that. So this deputy didn't let getting punched in the face.
Because the worst thing is you get punched and then your weapons.
You're out cold and now your weapon's exposed,
right?
And now he's, not only is he running away with sex toys and women's underwear, he's now got my gun.
Yeah. This is a crazy question. Have to ask it. Maybe I've watched too many police shows. Maybe
it's the only option, ladies. And so, okay, I guess. Newsweek reports women are getting sterilized after Donald Trump's victory, as it is their only option. Well, it isn't, but I got to tell you guys, I am not some staunch conservative pro-lifer who's going to come out and cry and lament the tragedy that is the misdirection of these individuals, and if only they found faith. While I certainly do agree largely with conservatives on these things, I consider myself more roguelike in that I ain't stopping you, ladies. If this is what you're going to do, my line is when you go after kids, okay? If someone who's an adult wants to get a vasectomy or get their tubes tied or whatever, I'm kind of like, okay, sure, fine, whatever. Live your life. If you're going after kids and damaging them, now you've crossed the line. And that's where we largely agree. Now, I will say this. Where I would say the more staunch conservatives, I'm sure there's many conservatives who agree and they're like, yeah, well, fine, do your thing. But there are probably, I would say, a large portion of conservatives who would say this is wrong and they shouldn't be doing this. You must, be fruitful and multiply. I would agree morally. I just don't think it's my responsibility to intervene. So if that's what you're thinking, ladies, but let's read this. And then I've got a justification from the left. I mean, we'll read the story for the Newsweek. It's not a procedure you'd expect a 28-year-old to be planning. But for Lydia Eccles from Texas, having her fallopian tubes removed is the price she's willing to pay to ensure her reproductive rights. What? You ain't going to be able to reproduce anymore, lady. Whatever. This is the paradox of the liberal cult. Okay, I gotta stress, I demand reproductive rights, so I will remove any capability to reproduce. Okay. I think what she's really saying is the right to not have babies. Well, fine. I don't care. I think probably a lot of conservatives are like, if this is what it takes, like, do your thing, right? It's better than abortion. Newsweek spoke to 5 women who have either undergone sterilization procedures or plan to in the wake of President-elect Donald Trump's victory on November 5th. They all expressed fear their reproductive choices will be taken from them under Trump's administration. Well, they're right. It was taken from them by them. You don't have a choice anymore. You removed your fallopian tubes. Okay, you have removed your choice. All right, anyway, quote, if I am to be denied any rights in the next 4 years or more years, I will not give them up without a fight. I can't even. Newsweek has contacted Trump's transition team via email for comment. Last week, a 39-year-old from Washington State who did not want to be named underwent a bilateral salpingectomy. Is that what it is? Salpingectomy? in which her fallopian tubes were removed. I am not happy that I felt forced into a surgery I did not want to alter my body. I feel like the election tied my hands and forced me to be sterilized. That is horrible. I can't laugh anymore. I have to read the news. I want to just laugh for 20 minutes. The issue of abortion and reproductive rights was a major one in this year's election. Trump took credit for the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade, removing the constitutional right to an abortion in the country, has repeatedly said that his position is to let states decide their own abortion laws. He's also said he would veto a national abortion ban, writing on Truth Social in October, I would not support a federal abortion ban under any circumstances and would, in fact, veto it because it is up to the states to decide based on the will of their voters. I disagree. I challenge that, Trump. And I believe conservatives and liberals would agree with me, but just in different directions. That is to say, the Supreme Court must answer the question under the 14th Amendment whether or not the unborn are persons. Of course, the liberals will say they are not, in which case they have no due process rights. The conservatives would say, of course they do, in which case they do have due process rights. Question that must be answered. And they have not been able to, but I believe it must be answered. And the ultimate conclusion will either be there will be either some or no abortion. So, in my view, if the Supreme Court rules that the unborn are not persons, then there will still be states that ban abortion. Well, actually, I think the end result is there will always be some abortion. And I mean abortion specifically in the elective process of ending a baby's life and terminating a pregnancy. I do not mean a medical procedure meant to help the mothers or the baby that results in the death of the pregnancy. The left always tries to play these games. I'm not referring to the termination of a pregnancy where the baby has already died or is on the verge of dying. And this is where things do get complicated because sometimes doctors can be wrong. But if the Supreme Court rules that the unborn are persons, it simply means a woman has to undergo due process. The baby must get its due process in court to determine whether or not the baby can be terminated. In which case, typically the answer is going to be it can't be, but there may be some other circumstances. I am not, of course, advocating for any of these positions. I personally fall in the more traditional pro-life position, simply that I believe abortion is wrong. However, I think any fair assessment of the facts would probably bring you to a similar conclusion that abortion is wrong. We want to avoid it. But as Ron Paul stated, it should be unthinkable, not illegal. And my concern is that we don't want elective abortion. That's where it's like there's no reason at all. It's just someone being like, eh. But there are some circumstances that I believe where there are legal complications in high risk to the mother and the baby, but then you are required to ask a court to adjudicate, and that's where.
And you have a lot of good men out there who can't compete with a ghost. Hope you enjoy it. Lily Phillips, you made your crusty bed. Something I don't respect. First story here today. To celebrate ringing in the new year, an OnlyFans model, Lily Phillips, and just so you know, just addressing and discussing does not mean condoning before people get upset. But you know what? I think you need to point out that an ideology is wrong, and I think we should bring shame back because that's the only effective tool we have if we're going to try and right this ship. So an OnlyFans model, Lily Phillips, will attempt to break a world record. And I know what you're thinking, like spinning plates? No.
Kind of.
Sleeping.
What I thought.
She'll be sleeping with 1,000 men in 24 hours, and Dad is proud.
If you want to be a part of breaking a world record, I have now pinned a poster on my Twitter on how to apply to be one of the 1,000 guys to be with me in 24 hours.
Let's just rattle through the commentary, through the comedy before we get to commentary, because I think we're all about to never did I think I'd be discussing this with my father on my program. So she put out an open application asking people to send in their submissions, and sponsoring the event and getting into the exclusive rights to in-game interviews with the human railroad herself is none other than the pioneer of dead mediums, the gold standard of radio, Howard Stern.
This January, Old Stern is back with OnlyFans model Lily Phillips as she bangs 1,000 guys.
I masturbated 3 times.
Send your applications to SternShow@howardstern.com for your chance to be one in 1,000 suitors. Suitor number 999 will win backstage passes to see Aerosmith's Last Century and Syphilis. For the exclusive audio-only coverage, tune in to the bad boy of radio, Howard Stern, on Stern 100, only on Sirius XM.
You know, he really was a bad boy before the internet.
I was looking up clips for that. I stumbled upon a bunch of porn sites.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
He's edgy, except for the fact that now women do it voluntarily on their OnlyFans. They've cut him out. He's like a car salesman. They just cut him out as a middleman.
You don't need an old creepy guy going, yeah, nice tits.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. It's like, yeah, tell everyone that you're taking off your clothes. This is great radio. And as it stands now, by the way, a couple of our employees threw their hats in the ring and just received a response. So, yep. Oh, that is gross, Samuel.
Nice pick.
And this one as well was.
Any hole will do.
Oh, come on now.
Wow.
He's not here to defend himself.
Come on now. Well, you know what? He picked the wrong day to fake being sick. And this is where we are at this point in the culture. This lady, Abby Phillips, she's going to be sleeping
Lily
with
Phillips, which, by the way, afterwards.
Oh, that's right.
changed her
Sorry,
name to
not
Lily
Abby.
Flathead.
Sorry. Yes. Not Abby Phillips. I'm sure that's someone else. Lily Phillips.
Yes.
Sounds like a BS name. Going to sleep with 1,000 men right now.
That's a lot of nuts!
And here's the thing, too.
He just had that in his pocket. Oh, he's been sitting on that.
That was incredibly appropriate.
That was perfect.
That was perfect.
Like, I know men here, and I know your wives, and everyone here has an attractive lady in their life. And I get it. You'll say that Miss Phillips is a pretty woman. But there are other pretty women out there. And isn't it nice to be able to find a pretty woman who doesn't sleep with 1,000 men, you know, who has self-respect? I don't know that Miss Phillips and people of her ilk understand that's what you're competing against. You're not competing against if women could do it. If they were as hot as me, then they would do it. Get their money. No. There are plenty of women out there who don't. They're just after different things, which do you feel that? I sense a 5-year into the future time travel coming on. Breaking. Lily Phillips confused as to why she can't find a decent husband. Who made this? Who made this jacket? Who's eating?
In the future, you're much heavier.
Yes, I am.
It's a gay straitjacket. I love it. Can you imagine being one? I hope she doesn't make the goal. I hope she falls short.
Yes.
She gets like 902 or something.
What was that quarterback who used to do the Guinness Book of World Records show? Just comes out, just a buzzer. Oh, no. No. Remember who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Tall white guy? That was a
regular TV show.
It was a regular TV show. Like some guy, you know, like put a tarantula in his butt or something.
You know, to be fair, she said sleep with. The joke may be on us.
Yes.
It may be like a Madame Tussauds wax figure where you hit quick, next, next.
Yeah. Power naps.
She would take an epidural or something?
Oh, my goodness.
At some point, it's going to start hurting, right? 1,000 people? That's going to start for 24 hours straight. It's going to hurt.
At a certain point, it's just push-ups.
Textbook definition of a super spreader. It's like 40-something guys an hour.
Yeah.
And the guys have no self-respect either.
No, of course they don't.
That's disgusting. Only the guy number one has any kind of.
And look, women out there, if you were watching this, because people say, and I get it. Look, you know, being a Christian, being a conservative, you don't want to have to address this. But here's the thing that's going to warp this woman's mind. This is an extreme example. Guarantee you of those 1,000 guys, there are probably a few guys who are 10s, really good looking, have a fast car, have a lot of money, have their stuff together. And this girl, Phillips, is going to think that that's actually her caliber of man. But then when she realizes, wait a second, no, if that guy's a 10, the 10s aren't going to marry you. The threshold is far lower to sleep with you. Even if you're middling attractive, you can get a very attractive, very successful man to sleep with you if you catch him at the right time. It's a very different standard. This person will have to marry you. These people will sleep with you. They will not marry you. The people who will be willing to marry you in 5 or 10 years' time after your window closes, sorry, it's a biological reality, are not going to be the men to whom you've become accustomed. They were just sleeping with you. And so it warps women's perspective, and they feel entitled to someone who was never serious with them in the first place. And you have a lot of good men out there who can't compete with a ghost. Hope you enjoy it. Lily Phillips, you made your crusty bed.
Oh my goodness.
Gotcha, bitch.
The video's going to be called Uncrustables.
Yes.
KY jelly
Could be a
provided.
little bit of Dunkaroo action.
By the way, Gerald just texted me, by the way. He said, I'm listening, jerks.
Yeah, he can't say anything.
Yeah, you can.
And I've been fired.
And you know, this record could never go the other way. A guy could say, okay, 5 in 24 hours. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Of course. I mean, unless it was
it's
Duke Law.
unfair,
This
I say.
is not
It's
her
unfair.
first go, by the way. I believe.
Yeah, she failed.
I believe.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
She wants to go again.
You've heard of the 4B movement. Leftist women withdrawing themselves from the dating market and adopting celibacy to protest against Trump winning.
There's no way I am letting any man near me.
And nothing of value was lost. You've seen others getting their heads shaved to deliberately make themselves more unattractive to men. Mission accomplished. You've seen others end relationships because their boyfriends voted for Trump.
I've literally broken up with a man because he voted for Trump.
Wow, bet he was devastated. Well, now some of them are taking it more than one step further by sterilizing themselves.
This is an emergency. Please call 911. Jen, how can I help you?
Hi, I'd like to schedule an appointment with Dr.
And are you the subscriber for this coverage?
Yes, ma'am.
And what's this appointment for?
A consultation for sterilization.
Now, I'm not trying to be rude, but in her case, is this procedure really necessary? I mean...
Alrighty, I have you scheduled.
You know I'm pro-life.
Sterilization.
But maybe some people just aren't meant to have kids.
I am so sorry to the groups and communities that this may negatively affect. And while I am still allowed to say such things, if you are in South Central Pennsylvania and you would like the name of the doctor that performed my sterilization surgery a few years ago, hit me up.
Whoa, hold up. Is she encouraging non-white women to get sterilized? Based? No. Bit racist, if you ask me. Suffice to say, humanity's collective future will surely be devastated by this contribution being absent from the gene pool. 25-year-old Eden Ixora, who reportedly creates content for OnlyFans, of course she does, told Newsweek the idea of getting pregnant was worse than death. Or you could just quit the online sex work, cut out all the degenerate promiscuity, find a decent husband, have a bunch of kids and enjoy genuine happiness. No, she chose instead the far more rational option of, checks notes, getting a bilateral salpingectomy, which is a procedure to have both of her fallopian tubes removed, undergoing a potentially traumatic irreversible surgery that will leave you barren for life. Because Orange Man bad. Or something.
Just get with the program. Don't stop, baby. Ooh, this ain't a slow jam.
She said, for me, it was a call to action. I need to get this locked in so I don't have to live in fear that at any moment some random guy can completely destroy my life. Or you could just stop fornicating with random guys. Turns out Trump winning wasn't the only reason Eden chose to get sterilized. No, what finally convinced her was this Nick Fuentes X post. Imagine getting body parts surgically removed because you got offended over a joke tweet. Makes those screaming at the sky women look positively moderate in comparison. It's a question I've heard so many times before. Paul, you're nearly pushing middle age. Alright, rude. How come you look 10 years younger than you are? Only 10? Well, it's not rocket science. It's called regularly moisturising your face and having a good skincare routine. That's why I'm excited to have Tej Hanley as the sponsor.
All right, so there's a trend that is popular right now, sterilization, those sort of things. Those are very permanent decisions over temporary emotional circumstances. Those actions are symptoms. They're not the root cause. The root cause is they've lowered people's self-esteem and self-respect such that they could be adversely affected in a permanent way from a Nick Fuentes type of tweet. Like, whoa, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Used to be a popular rhyme back when I was a kid. Apparently now those words can get you sterilized. I don't know. Have words changed, Scott? What's going on?
No, words have not changed. People's fragility has changed quite a bit. People's ability to just kind of, and I think just like the internet has changed people in a lot of ways. I don't know if people have really caught up to troll culture very much. You know, like Nick obviously is like one of the biggest trolls out there. And if you get offended, so here's the thing about trolls, you guys, and this is just like a little FYI, right?
They used to just live under bridges.
Exactly. So the thing about trolls is if you react or if you respond, they win. So if you just go, just laugh it off. That's how you fight the trolls. You don't sterilize yourself. You don't
feed the trolls.
Yeah, you don't feed the trolls. That's it. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of interesting stuff in that last segment, and it's So here's my take. Here's a little rant for you. So a lot of this gets blamed on the women, right? So the OnlyFans gal, it's like oh, it's lack of whatever. But I'll spin it back and I'll put it on. And you could say it's society has collapsed into degeneracy and what's being promoted through all the social medias and everything. It's like it's encouraging this stuff. And obviously there's a financial incentive with OnlyFans and everything. But I think there's a more deeply rooted thing going on here, right? And then it goes back to like the feminist thing, right? There's a quote that I heard recently that's amazing. I think it was C.S. Lewis. It said that there's only actually one job in the entire world, and that's being a mother. And all other jobs support that job, right? So I was like, well, that's pretty fascinating. So when you think about that, it's like, on a biological level, women are designed to look for a provider, a nurturer, a protector, that sort of thing, right? And I will say that in our society, it's the men that have failed. It is the men who have stepped away from their role as the protector and the provider. It's the men that have, with the skinny jeans and the lattes and the masks and the little electric vehicle. You guys, it's really your fault that women have now gone and had to go become self-sufficient on their own. They've had to become CEOs in the world because you have failed to be a provider. They have had to find their own way in the world because they are looking for a strong protector, and they're turning to the government. They're turning to the government, and they're turning to status, and they're turning to all these other things that are getting away from their own nature. And so if you want to stop the degeneracy, if you want to stop the OnlyFans, if you want to stop the gals banging 1,000 guys at the same time and stopping the 1,000 guys from banging the poor girl, then you have to step up, dude. You have to step up and be a man. You have to step up and stop drinking and get in shape and learn how to become a provider and stop being a little bitch. That's what it is.
And also, there was another Cold War that went on. So yes, men have responsibility, but there's little help from the CIA and its instrumental role in popularizing feminism and driving that wedge, and simultaneously the taxation of women in the marketplace, all these other things that were going on simultaneous to that. So yeah, we can have the buck stop here with men and just say, yeah, we dropped the ball. Sorry about that. We're going to fix it, because that's what actually needs to be done. We could talk about our feelings later. But we could just fix the problem, right? Because there's no sense in blame throwing here. But I also want to give credit where credit is due, because they brought people who were, who's that famous feminist who did a lot of time at the CIA? What was her name? She might still be around. The one. She ran Ms. Magazine.
I don't know.
LD. Can I phone a friend here? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Feminist.
Gloria Steinem.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Big poster child for, I bet Jane Fonda, who was also a poster child for feminism, she worked a little bit close with some U.S. government entities. Didn't she do some stuff in Vietnam too? It's a very interesting history behind these people. And she's second generation Hollywood. But as you see, there's many places in this book where you could find interesting aspects of how the arts and letters, right? Changing our culture during the Cold War also happened. It wasn't just like U.S. versus Russia. There was like the Anglo-American establishment against America, because they needed to, as they say, the phrase is, they needed to turn cowboys into gentlemen. And that's what the Rhodes Scholarship agenda was. That's the name of a Rhodes book, if you want to research this. Cowboys into gentlemen, because Americans had too much self-reliance and bravado and courage and honor and all these other things, and the empire did not find those things useful. It had to make you into a gentle man, not somebody who can go off into the wilderness and provide for their family. So this was also part of the predecessor to this era, the gentleman, the cowboys and the gentlemen, early 20th century activities. So there is, as always, a lot to be learned and a lot of opportunities to learn more about the people who have systematically created the situation to put men versus women in a feminist, toxic masculinity type of way. So,
yep,
always more to it.
Yep. Yeah. And it's like, you could shame, like what he was saying, like we need to apply shame. So you shame the woman. I don't know. I don't know if that fixes the problem, man. I think this is something that we gotta take a deep look at ourselves.
It works in hockey.
Yeah.
That's what the penalty box is about. And if you've seen the movie Youngblood with Keanu Reeves, and there's a part where they explain, or maybe it's Slapshot. One of the two, they explain the idea of a penalty. And they're like, he go to box, he sit 2 minutes, he feels shame, and then he's set free.
Maybe.
Hey, maybe.
Everyone's doing some kind of self-help these days, and you can find a million self-help courses out there. Most other courses out there are hosting lectures, they're hosting videos, they're maybe even doing Q&As, and these are great starting points to encourage learning. But at Autonomy, we believe that hands-on practice is the best way to really lock in what we're learning. There's no better way to gain confidence and mastery than through action. After each lecture, we practice the concepts we've learned with other students, giving and receiving feedback in a non-judgmental environment. The result is mastery of concepts like entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and self-reliance in an environment that directly translates to the real world. Plus, you make connections with other like-minded individuals who are learning right alongside you, and you have a lifetime membership in the community. The Autonomy course with Richard Grove equips you with confidence, competence, and courage in a world filled with confusion and noise. You can learn more at getautonomy.info. We'll see you there.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.